now plugged into the Social Plug Podcast.
What's going on, everybody? I am Johnny Martinez, and you are plugged in to the Social Plug Podcast, where we connect you to level up and where we discuss ordinary people doing extraordinary things. We are always powered by Social Plug Media. Today, we're in the Greenleaf studio at Greenleaf Health and Wellness in New Braunfels, Texas. The weather's great. The show's going to be awesome as well. What I got is my man back here. He's going to be awesome as well during this podcast. I got J-Rock.
We doing all right, man?
I'm doing great. The man with the big glasses, looking like the Macho Man, got the WrestleMania shirt on. This guy's a big-time wrestling guy.
I love those shades.
Yeah. I love it.
Ooh, yeah, the Macho Man. Cream of the crop.
That's right.
I can't even see him, man.
Today's episode is sponsored by Greenleaf Health and Wellness. You can find them all over social media and also at greenleafnb.com. They got great CBD products. They are a boutique. They're not just a CBD shop. They got apparel, drinks, and a lot more. So like I said, today's going to be a great show. Our special guest, this guy's kind of a big deal, not only in San Antonio, but in the film industry.
Heck yeah.
All right.
I'm excited for today, man.
Put the camera on this man right here.
Here he is.
Christian Stryder, the CEO of Stryde Studios. What's going on, my friend?
How's it going, my friend?
So this guy is a movie and film producer. He's a director. Not just anybody can be a director, man. Now, you can be on film, all day. I mean, a lot of us are on film, and we'll talk about that. Yeah. But to be a damn director and a producer, that takes a lot of prowess, a lot of know-how, just a lot of experience. You can't just get behind a camera and start directing. It's not that easy.
Yeah.
So you're also a writer, so you write material as well.
Correct.
And you call yourself a cinematographer. Okay, so is that a fancy way for saying videographer?
It means we mess with the lights. It means you have a little bit extra prowess to be able to make things look nice for commercial and film.
I like the word though, cinematographer.
Yeah.
It sounds great.
People think it sounds
fancy. So videography, you're also a marketer. You do a lot of marketing as well.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll talk about all these different things.
For sure.
But a movie producer, you're not just making films, you're making movies, right? And we'll get into all that, man. So welcome to the show. Today, videography is king of the jungle, man, king of the beasts.
No kidding.
Back in the day, and we talked about this before the show, people would just make little, take photos and maybe make little 3 to 5 second videos on their phones.
Yeah. As
phones progress and as technology progresses, we're starting to make reels, 2 or 3 minute videos, B-roll footage. If you're overeating at a restaurant or whatever, you can take footage of your entire family talking, this and that. It's next level stuff, man.
Yeah.
And I talked about it earlier. We can document our lives through videography.
Yeah.
All right. Social media plays a big factor in our lives. If you're not on social media today, you're a business owner.
You're invisible.
You're invisible. You're irrelevant. Yeah. You just need to hang it up.
Yep.
All right. Because social media is free.
Yeah.
And there are ways to get your name out there absolutely for free. Do you remember back in the day, Christian?
Yeah.
When we had radio and billboards?
Oh,
that was it.
And it wasn't cheap.
No.
Still not cheap.
No.
Still not cheap.
It's still not cheap. That's the funny part.
No, and you had radio.
Yeah.
I mean, radio's kind of. I mean, it's still a thing.
Yeah.
Sirius XM, and you got all these local channels and stuff. But videography is where it's at, man. So us as human beings, whether you're a millennial, whether you're in your 70s, baby boomer, whatever.
It's crazy, man.
People love watching videos.
Yeah.
Do y'all think radio's kind of dying out a little bit?
You know, it's funny. So we did a thing recently that we had a client we're working with, and in some demographics, like radio still, it was like surprising to me because like some demographics, like some of these injury, attorneys and stuff, some of these people that know like their demographic is listening to radio. It's actually prime for them because they know nobody else is advertising there anymore. Right. So they're like, hey, perfect.
You know who I like on the radio? The Hammer.
Oh, man.
I'm going to give a shout out to the Texas Hammer.
His ads are the best, man.
He's always yelling.
I love it.
And then you got the other guy. Fours. Four.
Davis.
You know the number.
Right.
Only one number you got to remember. Four.
Right. I mean, but it sticks with you. You always remember it.
Oh, yeah.
So, but videography, I think, sticks a little bit more today.
Yeah.
So I kind of formally introduced you, man. I want you to kind of introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you.
Sure.
what you got going on, and I got like 100 questions, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't
I
know how
got
much time we
101.
got.
Excited, man.
I got 101 as well.
He's got 101.
It's gonna be fun.
So this is going to be not only a educational podcast today, but informational and entertaining.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Because you're
Oh,
an
yeah.
entertaining guy, man. You have a lot of fun. You do a lot of
You
good,
gotta,
a lot of good stuff, and
Yeah.
you've gotten in the mix with a lot of things recently.
for sure.
So before I let you speak, because I've been talking the whole damn show already,
Yeah,
right?
already, bro.
So I met you about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
All right, and I saw you. We were at a wedding show because we're both in the wedding industry as
Mhm.
well. And I saw you, and I saw your setup, and I was like, "That's pretty cool, man." So I went up to you,
Yeah.
and said, "Hey, I don't know who you are, but I like your setup." And you had the little camera going and everything.
Yeah.
And I said, maybe sometime we can do business together.
Yeah.
At some point,
Yeah.
right? So I've watched you progress from that time, and I've seen you on social media. You got a great platform, but you're making movies. You're doing all these great things. You're
Yep.
working with the Boeing Tech Center down in San Antonio. You're doing a bunch of great stuff, man. So I'll let you lead it.
Yeah, man. It was funny because when we met, like we're talking about before the show, I think 5+ years ago, we had just started my company, probably less than a year,
Mhm.
and I was with my sister, my brother-in-law at the time, which probably goes hand in hand with man, you use your resources around you, right? Because
yeah.
man, without them at that time, I had nobody else. I'm like, look, I don't even have money to market right now. I need help, faces, people out here. So, thank God for my sister, and my brother-in-law. But yeah, man, that was such a different. It's funny because being the fact that we met so early on with the business, it is pretty cool because just to kind of see where things have changed from then to now.
Mhm.
I'm just grateful, man.
Yeah.
It's been a fun experience, but yeah, I got into primarily filmmaking was my passion. I've always loved filmmaking. That's the whole reason I got into the business. And for me, it was very much about I love movies growing up. My dad used to take me to movies all the time. I remember it's funny because he always tells me this. He always tells a funny story where he took me to the Mummy at I think I was probably 5 or something.
That's old school stuff. Man.
Yeah.
The Mummy.
And then he sees all these people around, all these these ladies judging him, oh my God, you took a 5-year-old to the Mummy,
Scary.
And my dad starts to feel a little guilty because he's looking and he sees I'm getting a little freaked out, and he comes over, he whispers to me, he's like, "It's just people in makeup."
Yeah.
And so I think that was those are things that help shape early on.
Heck yeah.
But that's what I love, man. As I love the storytelling, I love filmmaking. I have a real appreciation for that. And I was working corporate jobs and stuff. And then when I started my business, I said, this is going to be a vessel for me to do filmmaking.
Right.
I didn't see going through the industry method as being a vessel for me. I didn't have money to go to film school. I didn't have the means to go to LA or something. So I'm like, you know what? I feel like we're going into a world where now almost anybody can do it.
Yep.
So I'm like, I feel like there's a path for me here. And the weddings was my starting point, and I just happened to stumble on an opportunity, and little did I know that would be the means to find the rest of the way,
So what was your breakthrough? Because you started off filming weddings,
Yeah.
right? Photography and videography.
Yeah.
So Joe and Jane getting married over here, doing the kiss and the flowers and all
Yeah.
that. That was your starter kit.
Yeah.
Right? That was your first take into the business.
Yeah.
So what pivoted or what break did you get where you can say, man, now I can take the next step and go into filming and directing movies?
It's funny because we do a lot of mentorship and stuff, and something I always talk about with people that I'm working with when they say, hey, you know what, I want to jump in, same kind of thing. They want to jump in and making movies, but they want to jump straight there, and they don't there's no in between. And they're like, either I'm going to do it or I'm just going to not even touch anything that's related.
Mm-hmm.
And something that I always talk about is you know what? I think there's truly a path. If you're passionate about something, I think you can almost always shape and mold your experience to what you like about it.
Yep,
and then
absolutely.
and there's going to be a product there that somebody likes. So for me, I love movies. The first wedding I did, we formatted it like a film. And at that time, there wasn't many people doing them super cinematic. It was still kind of in a different style.
What year are we talking at this time?
This was probably 2015.
Okay.
Yeah, so it wasn't as popular. This was just an early thing. Nobody was using this cinema cameras and stuff that we were using early then. And I'm like, I'm gonna do a movie. So we did it like that. We were using I remember grabbing music from movies, different scores and stuff. And that was when we first did that. I was like, huh,
We're on to something.
they're on to something here.
Mm-hmm.
and then the product shaped and developed, and then probably by the like third or fourth wedding, to be honest with you, the product we had at that point is kind of what it's been ever since. Like the format, the
Yeah.
formula, and it's grown and gotten better. But that's been the bones, and I just said, you know what, I want to do it in a way that's satisfying to me. And to me, I almost consider that to be the start of filmmaking for me because I feel like I was making films already at that point.
I love that, man. So you were different. You had a vision to not do the same status quo cookie cutter filming.
Yeah.
You said, let me add a movie twist to it. I love that, man.
Yeah.
So growing up, you mentioned movies. What were some of your favorite movies growing up?
Ooh, man. You know, I loved some big ones for me growing up. I think like I was always a big Lord of the Rings fan.
Okay.
Spider-Man, you know, I loved all that stuff. That was big ones for me. My personal favorite and always true to my heart, Rocky, man.
Oh, yeah.
Rocky's my favorite. Adrian, yeah. You know,
Did you cry at Rocky when you first saw
oh,
it?
dude, yes, I did. I bawled my eyes out, man.
Did that inspire you to be like, you know what? I can overcome anything, man.
Dude,
Rocky, you're up there punching meat and all kinds of stuff.
Dude, I will never forget, man. Whenever, so I had seen all of them,
Mhm.
and my dad took me to go see Rocky Balboa in theaters because that was like the only one I could, you know, I was old enough to see in theaters. So we go to watch it in theaters, and I think that was the first time I ever like really, really broke down a movie. And I remember like at the end feeling like so sad because I'm like, Rocky lost. I thought it was like tragedy,
Yeah.
you know? And I didn't understand the moral, but I remember it was like the first time I had to think about it after. I'm like, no, but he didn't lose because he went the distance.
Yeah.
Right.
And it was the first time that I think I realized like, oh, there was a message there that I had to think about a little
Yeah.
bit and I had to sit and ponder on. And that's the part of, filmmaking that I love. It's just things that make you think.
Was one of these movies the movie that made you like, okay, I want to make movies, or I want to be a videographer, or I want to be this?
It was The Mummy, wasn't it?
You know, man, I got so much trauma from that movie. I'm like, dude, I have no choice. I have to battle my demons now. Yeah, no, it was I loved all those movies, man. They all inspired me, but I would say the one that for me was probably the thing that made me take it serious. Like I was in high school and stuff. I was already like considering, hey, you know what? I kind of want to go this route.
Yeah.
But probably it was right after. I remember I was working at my corporate job. I was working at Broadway Bank, and I remember, I was in the sales business before any of this because I just knew I needed to make money. I'm like, I need money,
Yeah.
frankly, to afford this equipment to even do this in the first place. So I was working in my job, and I remember we had it was a corporate day, and I was sitting in the parking lot, and I was on my lunch, and kudos to the corporate life, but it was not for me, you know. And I just remember sitting there and thinking like, there was a documentary that I watched, and it was about a filmmaker, a director, Stanley Kubrick, who was my favorite director.
A Clockwork Orange.
Clockwork
Right.
Orange.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember seeing his. There's one called Life in Pictures that's free on YouTube. You can watch, and like I recommend it to all filmmakers because it was so inspiring to me. Like I remember I was sitting in the parking lot and it was an hour long. I'm like, cool, I can watch this on my lunch. So I'm sitting there in the parking lot, and by the end of that, and just seeing the craftsmanship, and not only that, but the importance of like his work to him, and what he was trying to do, and just like to me, these movies are timeless because of the message, and there's so much more to take from it than just an entertainment factor. Like I love movies for entertainment. I've mentioned a bunch of those, but to me, like the things that pushed over the edge is something that I can take away and remember, and I think that's like true of marketing. I think it's true of all things, storytelling wise. But for me, it was that documentary that I remember just watching that, being so
That's
inspired and being like, you know what, I gotta take this seriously. I gotta push forward. And that was probably the point where I really, really said, you know what, I know what I want to do.
Hell yeah, man.
Yeah.
So I need to check that out. What's it called again?
It's called Stanley Kubrick, A Life in Pictures.
A Life in Pictures.
Yeah.
Okay.
Gotcha. We'll check that
That's
out.
great.
So when you watch movies now, you watch them from a different perspective.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah.
So you don't only just watch the message and you watch the acting. You watch the lighting. You listen to the sound and all these kind of things. So how does that change your perspective in watching movies?
You know, it's funny. I think I'm probably going back and forth in this a little bit. There was times where I'm like, dude, I'm not even enjoying this movie right now. I'm just like picking stuff apart.
Yeah.
And I've tried I think there's a good balance, right? Like what I try to do is go in now, and I usually like to watch movies twice. I'll go in, I'll watch it once, and I'll just try to not turn my brain off, but just like, let me just take it in, you know? Let me not try to like overthink it or anything. And I'll just take it in and see how I feel about it. And if I particularly like it or feel like, hey, I can like look at this a little more, then I'll watch it a second time, and then maybe I'll like pick it apart a little bit more. But yeah, there's a lot of things I notice, and there's a lot of things that sometimes are probably, I don't want to say hard to communicate, but there's so many subtle things, man. Like it's funny because just the way that lighting alone affects things and the way you feel about it, it's a subconscious thing, you know. And something we try to talk about when we're doing video marketing too is like, you know, we do it in a way that's not. We never want to bore our clients by
Yep.
saying, "Hey, let me explain the lighting," you know.
Right.
But at the same time, like there is something to that, you know. A certain type of lighting that feels a little bit more moody and dramatic is going to convey a message to somebody subconsciously versus something that feels bright and airy that feels maybe more of a positive message without even saying or doing anything. Just seeing a person, that lighting alone already says something to
Right.
you. So there's a lot of cool stuff like that that I think, you know, is cool to pick up on.
I caught myself. I used to do pro wrestling,
Very cool.
so when I watched wrestling, I think it was like 2012 to like 2000, like maybe 16. I couldn't enjoy it because I was catching myself like always just picking at it, you know, seeing their timing, things like that.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed it because that's what made me want to do all this, you know, film, podcasting, all that stuff was pro wrestling because the vignettes or you know the pre-match movies that they do to hype you up,
Yeah.
like all that, and then behind the scenes is huge. I feel like the stuff that we do with our videos, a lot of behind the scenes telling a story,
Oh yeah.
you know what I mean? But a lot of that came from pro wrestling,
And it
you
gives
know
you
what
an
I mean?
appreciation for their craft because it's
absolutely.
like crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
what they have to do in real time and not mess up. And
There's no cut or there's no stop. You're going, you know what I mean? You're in front of all those people.
one of the funniest things I ever saw with wrestling, you guys, and you probably remember, there's one wrestler who they had hyped up to be like, he was going to be like the new big guy. Have you seen this story where there was a wrestler and he was going to be like the new big thing, and he makes his big intro debut, and I think when he comes out, he slips or he hit his head on something, and so he was gonna be the guy, and then they were like, and then he completely botched his intro. So then his character became, oh, he's the guy who always makes a heroic entrance and then like screws up. You know.
So that was his gimmick.
No, that was
Yeah,
his
that
gimmick.
was his
So
gimmick,
he
yeah.
had it. He had it all, and then it was taken away from him.
Man.
I was like, man, dude, that's heartbreaking to me.
He like slammed through this wall and then his helmet like
That's
fell
right.
off and then he went and grabbed the helmet and put it back on and acted like nothing. He didn't come back down.
So it wasn't supposed to be like that.
No, it wasn't. He was supposed to
But they
be
just
like,
played into it.
Yeah,
Now it's like this is
yeah.
his thing.
he
now.
was supposed to be the next top thing, and then that happened. Oh my god, it's hilarious.
Yeah, it's a funny one.
So on the movie front, we watch movies from the 70s, 80s, 90s.
Yeah.
And now we're watching some movies now. Do you think directors have gotten lazier? Are they better? Is the cinematography better?
That's a great
The AI perspective, all the graphics? Because I watched some movies that were, within the past 2 years, and they look shitty, man.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's budget, if it's the
Yeah.
director, if it's the producer, if it's the lighting. I don't know what it is.
I think a lot of people feel that way, you know. I think no, man, that's a great question. I think you know, I'm a big film history guy. That's probably like my other kind of element of it is I love, to me, history is important in general, but I think like particularly in the trade that you're in, I think it's important to understand those patterns and stuff. And so I'm always doing a lot of you know, I read a lot about, you know, just film history and also, you know, watch a lot of stuff on it. And it's interesting because when you see the different generations of filmmaking, each one is like a kind of retaliation to the decade before.
Yeah.
You know, so I kind of feel in some ways like, you know, obviously we don't know for sure, but there's some way to kind of predict where we're going just by looking
Yeah.
at that. And you know, the 70s was kind of a retaliation to the 60s, and the 80s was a retaliation to the 70s, where, you know, 70s was a grungier era where they're taking like chances and they're making some pretty, you know, ballsy
Yeah.
movies. And
There were some great movies in the
dude,
70s.
the 70s is probably, for, you know, from filmmaking history perspective, it's
Yeah.
probably like the best decade of filmmaking ever.
You know who I like? I like Rob Zombie.
Rob Zombie.
Some of his
heck yeah.
movies, he makes it set in the 70s.
Yeah.
But
He has a great grunge to his.
Yeah.
It feels very, I think he really loves that era.
yeah.
And you can tell. And then when you see the 80s, like that's when all the franchise films come in. And obviously
National Lampoon's Vacation.
There you
and all
go.
these other Porky's and
Yep.
all these things.
and
yeah.
that's because now the studios are seeing, hey, you know, in the 70s, you know, Hollywood had collapsed, and now movie studios are trying to get back up and going, so they're very independent minded, like they're taking chances on things, and you have some amazing movies being made. But then, you know, once again, they get in there, they start getting comfortable. They said, how can we kind of turnkey profit? And then, you know, franchises become a thing, 80s, and then 90s is rebellion again. And hey, let's get back to the grungy, and you got your Tarantinos and those guys.
Goodfellas.
That's my
Goodfellas was a great
Goodfellas.
movie.
Yeah.
Scarface was in the 80s. That was another good one.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna say something unpopular right now.
Yeah.
I don't like all these Marvel movies.
Really?
I don't like
Oh
them.
man. Okay, so
I like realistic type movies.
Yeah, sure.
Goodfellas, the Scarface.
Yeah.
how do you feel about that?
You know.
I saw his body language.
That's
He's
why I
like-
said it's unpopular.
No. It's-
Johnny, he almost go, and because of that, I'm out.
Yeah.
No,
He's about to walk off the set.
Right?
you and me are in the same camp. You and me are in the same camp, man. Where the honestly, like what you're saying, I agree. It's probably unpopular, but probably becoming more popular. I feel like a lot of people are starting to get a little turned off by the Marvel stuff.
It's just the same
That's
stuff.
but
over
that's
and
the
over.
only thing that's drawing you to the movie theaters
Yeah.
nowadays, though. Because like, what is this movie that just came out? Five Nights at Freddy's.
Yeah,
It's in the theater still, but you can watch it on Peacock. You know what I mean?
and that's a huge
And
mistake.
that's that is a huge mistake because you're not going to make the money that you need.
Yeah.
But the Marvel movies, I just barely got into them like 3 years ago.
Sure.
Maybe during COVID.
Yeah.
But I would always, my friends would always give me shit, but I would always give them shit. I'm like, I'm not watching that fake shit. Y'all want to say wrestling's fake? That's fake.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And,
The
you know,
Hulk
any movie,
versus
you know.
freaking who's Ant-Man or whatever.
Yeah.
Come on,
Yeah.
man. Come on, man.
I like how they obviously do the movie. It's very exciting.
Sure.
They do all these great stuff,
Yeah.
a lot of effects, but I feel you a little bit on that too, Johnny.
Well,
So,
you know,
it just depends.
Scorsese said it best recently, Martin Scorsese, because he had a real controversial statement. A lot of people had problems with it. I don't know if y'all saw that, but he had said something that he's like, Marvel movies are like roller coaster rides, you
Mhm.
know?
Mm-hmm.
And but I think he was spot on. Like, you know, I have nothing against Marvel movies. I don't think it's their fault that like right now, pretty much the only movies that are in theaters are like
Mhm.
bulk franchise movies or
Mhm.
Marvel movies.
Yep.
It's not necessarily their fault. I watched like a really great video essay recently about this, but they were talking about how like, you know, that history thing where it's like, you know, the thing that that they realized in the early 2000s was these intellectual properties they have with, you know, Lord of the Rings and these Marvel movies. That's when the Spider movies came out, and that's when all these, you know, Harry Potter, et cetera, et cetera. Like they were like, hey, you know what? There's these intellectual properties that we have that we can just keep making movies of. And the
Yeah.
best, and when they saw that comic books were essentially endless
Mm-hmm.
and they have infinite material to draw
Right.
from, they're like, what better, you know, monetary play than just doing these Marvel movies where we already have all the material.
Mm-hmm.
People like the characters. People aren't watching the movie for the actor; they're watching it for the character. So we
Yeah.
don't need to rely on hiring big budget movie stars.
Mm-hmm.
There was all these factors that compounded in. But now I think a big mistake they're making too is the fact that, and I think some studios realize this, is that they're pulling away from like doing the streaming and in theater thing at the same time.
Yeah.
That's really messing.
I
up.
don't understand that.
Yeah.
I don't understand how they're making money if they're going to be doing that, you know?
Yeah.
But I guess in some ways that streaming deal, you know, man, will make its way up. You know, do you ever think that they're going to I mean, they're never going to shut the movies down. An Evo will never shut down because they got the bowling, they got the video games, you know, food, all that
Yeah.
stuff, but you think we'll see a time and era where you just pay for a movie at home now?
You know,
know?
It's happening.
I hope not, but
Is it happening?
I've on Redbox sometimes it's like the movies that are, and I might be the wrong platform, but movies that are in the theaters, you can purchase them, and they're like $39.99 or $29.99.
See, that's what I was thinking. You gotta. If you're gonna pay for that at home, you're looking at maybe $40 to $50.
And
You
the
gotta
ones that
pay
are
4 or 5
losing out
tickets.
are the movie theaters.
Oh, yeah.
Because the popcorn and the peanuts and all that kind
Oh,
of stuff
yeah.
that you spend $150 on.
that's for sure. Yeah,
Right.
exactly. That's
Yeah.
what they really want.
I remember being young and my parents were like, "We're not getting nothing at the movie
Yeah.
theater. We're gonna stop at the store. You better
Look,
put it in your pocket."
I don't want to admit to a crime here, but I'm
Right.
not going to say that there wasn't candy and some purses and
Right.
stuff when we went to those
Oh,
theaters.
let's talk about that.
Yeah.
All right.
So
So
a scary movie where she takes her chicken, like a plate in there.
So, are you guilty of bringing in some Skittles or
I
some
am,
M&Ms or something?
Skittles
I
in
am.
there.
I'm full fledged
There's
guilty.
Skittles
Man.
in
there. I am.
That's expensive, man. Paying it
Screw
for-
you, Evo. Screw you.
Look, I support the movie theaters all the way. I'm there. I'm buying my
Right.
ticket, but give me some leeway. I'm gonna bring some candy in. You know what I mean?
So mom always takes a big purse and,
Yeah,
and the
right.
jacket.
exactly. Yeah.
Hey, it does get cold in the movie theaters.
Yeah.
So my kids always bring the jackets
Yeah,
with the extra
exactly.
pockets
And
to
that's
bring
what you do.
extra, candy bars.
Some of
Play.
my basketball boys, we went to we went somewhere. Where were we at? Oh, Sip and Putt. We went to Sip and Putt, right? And we had pizza there and all that stuff. And then they were going to the movies after. they took a whole pizza. They put it in the back of their jacket and took the whole pizza in there. And they were showing me, sending me videos. They're like, "Look, Coach, we're eating pizza." In
That's high level. Wow, a pizza.
Hey,
yeah.
J-Rock, that's fraud, my friend. Hey, we're about to turn you in. So, Evo, if you're watching this, hey,
Watch out for
that
the
man's
pizza.
guilty.
Right.
The pizza bandit.
You better bring a pizza in, a full
Yeah.
pizza.
So we can talk all day about movies and all.
Sure.
I mean, movies have changed our lives. Movies
Oh,
have
yeah,
inspired
man.
us.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They've made us cry. They made us laugh. All that. I mean, we have fun memories with
Yeah.
movies, man. So with your business in particular, I know you got a lot of projects going on. What projects do you have going on right now, and what have you had in the past that have been outstanding?
You know, right now, so over the years, like we've done a lot of people have inquired us about doing film projects. The bulk of our work really is commercial projects. You know, we did a lot of commercial things, video marketing. We did the Boeing Techport, project. That was a really big endeavor. And that was a real cool one with just the kind of way we had to kind of basically create something from nothing. And, it was pretty interesting. Like we had to basically custom make these black boards we got the special paint for. It's called Vanta Black, and it's basically pitch black. It's like the most absolute black you could have. Like there's no light transmission, so it almost looks like it looks like 2D almost. So we basically got this. We like made a whole like fake set, and we basically had to envision, because their whole thing is like pushing STEM with youth and stuff, right? So we basically had to get there was this child actress that we got that was amazing. And she was, like we had, like, for example, it's like prosthetic arms, and she's interacting with this prosthetic arm.
That's
Or, she's at the, we took her over to a flight simulator they had at this Air Force base, and she's in there in a flight simulator. And these are all things they have there now, but we basically had to kind of, imagine it without having the things in place. So it was a cool one.
So let's talk about this Boeing Techport Center.
Yeah.
So this is in San Antonio. It's pretty new.
Yeah.
It's about a year and a half old. All right. I got to go to the first concert ever. That was Smashing Pumpkins.
Yeah.
Great venue. So you can host so many things there.
Oh,
Not
yeah.
only concerts, but seminars and
Yeah.
all kinds of things. And it has some of the most highly technological. They say the internet there is
Yeah.
unreal. I mean, your phone can go really, really fast, and everything else can go really fast.
Yeah.
But they got the lighting in there. It's great. The acoustics are in there.
Yeah,
They got
it's
the great
awesome.
bass. Just everything
Oh,
in there
yeah.
is phenomenal. So it's a state-of-the-art facility.
Oh, yeah, big time. And
So that's awesome that
Yeah.
you got to work with those guys.
well, it's cool because so they planted themselves right next to Boeing,
Mhm.
like the actual Boeing,
Mhm.
and a bunch of other stuff. So it's like they basically put themselves in the heart of industry, and that used to be an Air Force base. What I think it was
Kelly.
Kelly.
Do they
Yeah.
still have planes flying out? I mean,
Yeah,
if
well, we
I'm
were there
correct,
yesterday.
When
We
I
can-
was
we
there
can hear 'em
yesterday, we
going
can
over.
hear them, right?
Mhm.
I thought that was the air condition turning on, but I was like, no, I think that's an airplane.
Yeah.
It was funny because so when we were there, so a lot of the stuff we had to shoot. So the other half of the video was that we were shooting real industry people alongside her to kind of like show these are real people in the industry. Here's her like at the Techport Center, kind of like utilizing these things that real industry people
Right.
do. So we got to go to like Boeing and film there. We got to go to this place where they have like robotics where they're like shipping packages. There's this huge like robotic arms and they're like moving packages. That's pretty cool. And with Boeing, it was funny because we happened to go and shoot there the day that the first lady flew in, and we didn't know.
Wow.
So like we're there, and like it's really like high. They're like, "Hey, FYI, there's gonna be higher security today," and we didn't know why. And then like we're getting, and I was like, "All these
They
like
couldn't tell you, or
they didn't say it first. Like nobody,
Okay.
I don't think they even knew. But there was like all these black SUVs around, and then I'm filming. We're filming these huge aircrafts, these military aircrafts inside the base. Really cool stuff. And I just happened to be filming a certain way, and all of a sudden the security guard comes up to me. She's like, no. And she tells me to, and I'm like, what?
Oh wow.
And through the doors was Air Force One. And I wasn't even filming that, but I
Mhm.
was shooting in the direction of Air Force One. I didn't even know.
Mhm.
And so they pull me
That's
back
so
into like this containment area, and they're like, hey, we need that footage gone. So I couldn't leave.
Oh wow.
Until-
They had to watch you
They
delete
had to
it?
watch
They
you
had to
delete it?
watch me. And I didn't have like, with these cinema cameras we have, I can't even like go in, like there's no delete
Yeah,
button on the
there's
camera.
this isn't like the one we're using right now.
Right.
You can't just go and click and
Yeah.
What
So
the
I'm like, I had to
heck?
literally send somebody to my office to go get like the special readers we have to then bring it back
Mhm.
Oh,
and my laptop
gosh.
and delete it. And I was stuck there for probably like 3 or 4 hours.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
wild.
The things you capture, right? You're like,
Yeah.
I'm just here to work.
I'm
and
like,
then
look, I didn't
boom.
know I was getting,
What type of cameras do you use, buddy, if you don't mind me asking? As
we
well?
use Red Komodo's our main camera.
Okay.
And then we use a lot of the Blackmagic Pocket 6K cameras.
Gotcha.
And then Canon stuff.
Those
too.
are some big boys, right?
Yeah, they
Yeah,
are.
man.
Those are all cinema cameras, and they're nice. And media's a big thing, though, man. They're all 6K cameras. And
That's not stuff you find at the flea market there, Chip.
yeah, I wish. That'd be nice.
That'd be nice if the
Save a
price
buck,
go low
man.
down, right?
I wouldn't mind saving $1. Shoot.
All those settings is in Spanish and shit.
Hey, I'll take it, man.
Right.
I'll take it.
The pulga.
The pulga, right?
Yeah. We don't do that, man.
When did you start getting into that realm? Obviously, you said you were doing weddings and stuff like that, but like, when did you were like, okay, it's time to make this big jump. Let's get all this equipment.
Yeah.
When was that? When did that start?
It actually came about because I have a buddy of mine who I met about less than a year into my business, and he's actually the announcer for the Spurs. His name's Zeze, really good friend of mine, and he just happened to move down from New York. He was doing red carpet interviews before. He had a show he was doing, and he moved down to San Antonio to be with his wife's family and stuff. So. He came down here and he was looking for, scout the market, new opportunities. He happened to be working with a talent agency that I work with, and so we connected that way. And he had a really big commercial client in this the Baptist health hospitals.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So he was like, hey, my I think it was his brother-in-law was a big marketing guy there, and he's like, hey, we want to try to do this commercial for them. He's like, I know you guys, you do this, but we had only ever done like small business, stuff at that point. And he's like, and this was like in December of like 2018 or something.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And so he goes, hey, we want to try to do this. This is gonna be a commercial. It's televised. I'd never done this before.
Ooh, man.
And he's like, you guys can do that, right? He's like, I'm like, yeah,
Of course, man.
of course you can.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm over there like freaking out.
I love it.
Because I'm like, dude, I know nothing about what the standards are for being televised. I don't know any of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I spent a week. I looked online to figure out what textbooks cinematographers read or what their curriculum was in school. I bought the book and I basically spent a week doing a crash course on just trying to figure out what I needed to know and what I needed to do that commercial.
Wow, that's awesome, man.
And it was it had some hurdles, but we nailed it, and they've been our client ever since. We shoot with them, we're down in the valley a couple weeks ago shooting with them.
Oh yeah,
and
man.
it's been a great client. So I mean, I guess that's an opportunity meets preparation kind of thing, where it's like I think there's so many things like that where you can make things happen when those opportunities come if you rise to the challenge.
Right.
And I think that's what it's all about, right, Johnny?
Yep,
like
absolutely.
You have to understand like taking chances, growing, getting better. Maybe you're not where you want to be at.
Yeah.
But you know where you want to go. And I think
take risks.
Yes, and I think that's what people forget and lose track of that. You know what I mean? Keep going. I was telling Johnny this the other day. I never knew this is where it was going to go. I loved recording. I love capturing. Again, the whole wrestling thing.
Yeah.
I want to tell stories. And here we are. You know what I mean? I was like 4 years ago, I was trying to just record an audio podcast.
Yeah.
And now we're sitting here in the studio and doing all this, you know what I mean? And it's crazy. Just stick with what you're doing, stay interested. And I tell that to a lot of my athletes is like, man, we love this game.
Yeah.
But this game's going to do more for us other than just basketball one day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that's the way I've taken life. And that's why I love filmmaking. And it can go many ways, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, heck yeah, man. That's great that you were able to... I don't know, but let's do it.
Yeah. I think
Sometimes you gotta take risks, man.
Yeah.
And
You do,
people
man. You do.
are afraid to take risks.
Yeah.
Not everybody, but I see so many people that are afraid, and they if you don't shoot, you don't score.
Yeah.
That's right.
Just like the Spurs. We'll talk about the Spurs in a second.
yeah.
But if you don't shoot, you don't score, and that's in life.
Yeah.
So I'm always telling people, take your shot.
You got it, man.
Shoot the shot, because if you don't take it, you're done.
Yep.
And that's the thing. We got one life, You might as well, if you got something that you love and enjoy, you got to go for it, man. I know for me, early on was the big thing for me is like, I never wanted to get to a point in my life where it was like looking back like regret, I'm like, you know what? I'd rather at least have gone for it and only gotten so far than have not ever gone for it, you know?
Regret is the worst.
Yeah.
That's the worst damn thing you can ever, because you got to live through it all the time.
Yeah.
And then somebody brings it up and you're like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
I almost did that.
Yeah.
I almost did that film. I almost, went into this industry, whatever. No, but you didn't.
Yeah.
because your dumbass didn't take the chance.
That's right.
Right.
And that's the reality, man. Everybody, when people realize like everybody's the same in that way. Everybody goes in with the self-doubt. Everybody goes in, but you just got to rise above that
Yeah.
stuff, you know?
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Can't be afraid to fail, man.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
That's the number one thing that I've learned is can't be afraid to fail. You
Yeah.
know, get out there, try, attempt, and that's what I do with all this. You know, recently I've gotten better at this. I like to hope and think.
Yeah.
Especially my videography, and you know, people ask. Recently, been getting more people asking, like, "Hey, well, how much do you charge for this?" I mean, and just learning that process,
Right.
like, dang, like, how much am I worth? You know,
Yeah.
it feels good to
Right.
like know your worth, get out there, and let's get better, man.
Well, and I
So
think
it's
life is
awesome.
fun too when you're not bored. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like when you always have something to figure out, and at least
Mhm.
like, you know, I mean, it's probably true of every business in some regard, but like in this particular business, I love it because I'm on the business side. I get to figure that out. I like the
Yeah.
sales process because from my background in sales, and I do like, you know, obviously the many things to learn in the actual industry itself. But to me, it's like the failure. I think when you flip it as a fun thing, like, hey, you know what could I have done better? Or like, how do I basically, to use your, you know, verbiage, how do I level up this shoot?
Right.
It's how we've always done it. From the very beginning, we've gone in every single shoot and I've thought, what can we do better? One thing better, at least in this one that we didn't do before. And we still try to hold that true. And I feel like that's how we progressed, you
Right.
know, every time.
If you're not trying to get better or leveling up or just changing your mindset to be the best in the business,
Yeah.
stay home and go to sleep.
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's true.
It's competitive.
Yeah, you got to be a competitor, but
Yeah.
you in your mind, when you walk in that room, Christian, you know this. I'm the best fucking videographer that's ever lived.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you have
Yeah.
that mentality.
Yeah. No,
And
it's true.
that's just the way it is.
And I think it's funny because you know how they always say like, you know, sometimes you have to be a little bit delusional. But
Right.
I think it's delusional like in a way that's necessary.
Right.
You know, I went in thinking, what's my goal? My goal is to be the best filmmaker of all time.
Right.
You know, and if you ask me on a practical level, do I think that there's some possibility that doesn't ever happen? Sure, but I'm gonna live with that truth because I'd rather aim high and miss
Oh yeah.
than not aim to the sky.
It's all a mental thing. It's manifesting.
Yeah,
If you walk in the room and I'm the best, so you're in the best in someone's eyes, just like world's best dad.
yeah,
Yeah.
You're the world's best dad to
yeah,
somebody, right?
yeah. That's true.
And it's your market that watches you. It's every single video you make, every single appearance wherever. That's your brand.
Yeah.
And your legacy is there. And I'm kind of foreshadowing the question I'm going to ask you at the end about legacy. But everything is a marketing piece.
Yeah.
Every photo you take, every video you make, it's a marketing piece.
That's right.
And you provide value to people.
Yeah.
All right. So how do you help people solve problems?
You know, I think for us the big thing is we really help people understand and break things down. I feel like a lot of times when somebody has a challenge, it's a matter of the framing.
Yeah.
I feel like it's just usually looking at it wrong.
Yep.
And it's like a change in perspective is what's needed to kind of see it differently. You know, so when sometimes somebody comes to us, whether it be like in the marketing side with a challenge and say, hey, I'm struggling to get this particular audience to bite on our stuff. Well, what is it that you're doing right now? That's obviously the first question. And then it becomes a matter of like, well, okay, so I always think about things from the sales perspective. And this is just something that's worked for us. Is like, I think sales works because it gets to the human element of it, of like, when you bring that sales mindset into marketing, I think it's very healthy because you get to see like, what is it that they are concerned with or what is that their objections are? And what are the things that you normally tell them that really get them over the edge? And ironically, most people are usually not incorporating those sales things into their marketing. And that's where it's like sometimes it's almost like the most simple things like that it's just a flipping perspective of like, hey, if this is the things you pitch in your sales, why aren't you using this in your marketing?
Right.
And that's like a big
And
thing.
you help them solve problems, and their problem is lead generation.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
And a lot of business owners have problems with lead generation.
Oh yeah.
So you help them solve that problem. And with marketing, it's definitely it's always there. Marketing's all around us.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right. So how do you market your business besides just the videography? How do you get out there, build relationships, get out in the community? How do you do that?
It's a number of things, obviously, being that we're in the video side, the new most cutting edge ways are relevant to us. But to be honest, we still do a lot of like boots on the ground. I go to a lot of mixers and networking events, especially like in my industry. And, I think there's a balance to that, right? Because I've been to a lot of like networking events and I'm sure you guys have too, where it's like
For just like filmmaking or just in that area?
in the industry, like filmmaking, or sometimes it's a little more broad where it's just like video as a whole marketing.
Because you what you do to help people solve problems is you cater to business owners and entities and corporate.
Right.
So you're not only in the film industry, you're in every industry,
Right.
just like us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We're in every industry in the marketing business.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
Exactly.
you can go to wedding, you can
Yeah.
go to business owners, you can go to filmmakers,
Yeah.
you can go everywhere.
And they're all relevant.
So
Yeah.
yep, that's a huge it's a huge thing in business.
Yeah.
Is there some businesses that if you sell makeup?
Yeah.
Okay, you cater to women,
Right.
but you don't cater to men.
Right.
So you're only
I
doing
don't know.
50%.
It's 2023.
Well, in
Yeah.
2023.
Maybe it's all
But you know what I'm
I'm
saying? You
joking,
are
I'm
in
joking.
every single industry, marketing and film, and you do some photography,
Mhm.
but it's in everything. So you have your pick of the litter, and you're sought after.
Mhm.
And as they see you progress, you're like, man, that's Christian Stryder.
Yeah.
That's the man.
Yeah.
And is that kind of happening a little bit? Do you see your value? We talked.
Sure.
J-Rock mentioned value.
Yeah.
Do you see that leveling up a little bit?
I do. You know, I've always been a guy who doesn't like to. I feel like I've always been low key. You know what I mean? I don't like the idea of
Humble.
I feel that's what it is. But ultimately, like, and I, it's kind of a practice what you preach thing. I tell my own clients to hype themselves up.
There you go.
So it's like I have to turn it on myself, and then someone must be like, "Look, I mean, I got to do what I'm telling them to do." And I know ultimately what I'm saying is backed up. You know what I mean? But it's just a matter of I think what early on kind of like soured me a little bit to the industry was I had gotten involved with this there was kind of a startup. There was a guy who had come with a lot of money back to San Antonio. He was like a really successful doctor, and he was starting up this production company here in San Antonio, and they were going to buy this huge building and like start all these shows. Like it was going to be like the
Hell yeah.
re-revolution of like filmmaking and shows in San Antonio. So this was like before I even started my company. So I had gone to this thing that they invited me to, and I was like, talking with them about like, hey, let's produce. Like they were talking about like shows they were wanting to produce, and they were trying to get me to do this thing that was going to be on like the human trafficking that goes through, and it was like super. I mean, it was super interesting, but it was super risky.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things that I was like really having to weigh. But ultimately, like there was a lot of at the top level that were around this guy who I think was a good guy. But there was a lot of these like LA types that were very braggadocious, to use, for lack of a better word. Like they were just very all bark, no bite.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that was very like, that was a big turnoff to me. I'm like, I don't like, you want to be confident, you want to be all these things, but to me, it's like I think there's a difference between being that and then being somebody who is full of themselves and then tries to demean people.
Because that means you're looking down on them, and you shouldn't. You should be collaborative.
Right.
Right.
And so to me, like that was an immediate thing that I encountered in the industry. I'm like, I never want to be that guy.
Yeah.
Right.
I want to go in like everybody's my peers and still have respect for my talents and all these things, but never treat anybody, no matter what position they're in, like they're lesser in any way. And so to me, that's always been a big thing that I think we've really, really tried to do is maintain that.
Do you see that a lot in the industry in San Antonio, or is that more of like an LA thing? You know what I mean?
It's dipping into Austin a little bit.
Really?
The Austin kind of area has like a little bit of that flavor, the LA flavor, a little bit.
Yeah.
So it's not everybody. Like it truthfully is a minority, but I do see it, and it's something that when I see that I'm like, okay, you know what, we got enough things going on. Those people I decide not to work with usually.
Yeah, it's like a filter. I mean, you work with who you want to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And are you from San Antonio?
Yeah. Born and raised.
Born and raised.
So
Born and raised.
was this a hobby, or was this something you went to school for?
So it was a hobby.
Okay.
I started to go to school. I only went for like 2 semesters. School wasn't for me, to be honest with you.
I hear a lot of filmmakers are.
It's true.
They
Do
don't
you
go to
need
school.
college?
Yeah.
Do you need?
I don't think you do. I don't think you
Sure.
do. You know what I mean? But it does help.
Yeah, I don't think. I think it's totally dependent on the person. You know what I
Correct.
mean? I think
Yeah.
it's like for me, probably not. I mean, now in hindsight, would have I liked it? Sure, but I couldn't afford it anyway. Like the
Correct,
legit
yeah,
film
yeah,
school. You know what I
yeah.
mean? So it wasn't even an option. Like I was going over to the Alamo colleges, and not to knock the program or anything, but it's just a matter of the fact that for me at that time, I was already digging in hands on. And I was already kind of getting involved, and then I went to go, and I'm here at the Alamo colleges, and I'm like still doing things that have nothing to do with filmmaking.
Exactly. That's what got me out.
And so for me, I felt like at that time I was already moving ahead, and I felt like
Mhm.
ultimately I was going to be kind of
Mhm.
not using my money wisely when I could go,
Yeah.
get some equipment to do more work.
That was kind of my thing. Was that's funny that we just talked about how like we kind of develop this thing as we get older or whatever we want to do. But when I was going to my first year of college, I was like, I don't know what I want to be.
Yeah.
Like I didn't want to be a coach. for a school, but I still wanted to go to college because that's the thing you do, right?
Right.
So I remember doing TV and radio.
Mhm.
I remember that being my, what I wanted to go to school for.
Yeah.
And I remember like, okay, well, you got to take these classes. I'm like, what the does this have to do with me learning how to do film, you
Right.
know? And so that's what kind of drew me away from school. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
at that time, I'm doing pro wrestling. I'm like, okay, if I go do this part and I'm still wrestling, like it'll come all together. You know
Right.
what I mean? But yeah, no, I've seen I've worked with a lot of people that have gone to school.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're not,
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I have people that went to school that even tell me like, hey, I don't think I needed to go.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
So I mean they say themselves, but it depends on the person. But ultimately, like, and that's why I like to mentor and do that kind of stuff, because I think had I didn't really have a mentor getting into any of this. And God knows like how much I would have loved having that. Like when I
Yeah.
first got in, it was just some kind of guiding light of like, hey, because early on it was like a guessing game, and I felt like I was kind of risking on something that I didn't even know if it was like a proven method, you know. And over time, like I realized, okay, it is, but it felt wobbly, like I didn't really know, and I didn't know anybody else that was doing it the same exact way. So I just felt kind of like isolated in that way.
Yeah.
Only to find out like years later, there's hundreds of filmmakers in San Antonio doing the same thing, but everybody's like lives in these little silos and these bubbles. And I think the community started to come together more now, but especially like then it was not as, still very siloed. And I think, San Antonio is getting better, but there's still a lot of that. And I think there's a good opportunity to still bring it together and, show other people like, look at all those people doing it in different ways and
Yeah.
bringing new perspectives and that kind of stuff.
Do filmmakers here in this area collaborate with each other? Like, hey, let me give you some ideas, or let's have this networking group where we can brainstorm on this and that.
They're more so now, but I think and my goal is to make it happen even more. It's moving that way. And as kind of a side note thing, one guy who was really good at that, and I'm just saying this because it means a lot, is there's a guy who just passed away a couple days ago who was probably one of the most influential film people in San Antonio. His name was Kerry Valderrama, and he opened a place called Alamo City Studios in town. And they're basically like a geekdom kind of place where they've got multiple offices you can work in for different, so like a sound guy's there, and they have a guy who does only video stuff for animation or whatever.
Nice.
And he had made a film, and then basically come back with some of the money they made, and basically got some partners in, and they started this place, Alamo City Studios. And he was always like a bastion of like, hey, I'm trying to bring the filmmaking community together. And good guy, man, good guy. And he was somebody who was a big proponent of that. And dude, it was crazy. He passed away this week, and it was like shot 45.
Rest in peace, man. He's
Rest in
young.
peace to him, yeah.
Yeah,
But
that's rough.
I think he ultimately what he did, his legacy,
There you go.
he did something very impactful, and I think he started a movement of things that brought people together. That's only continued to grow.
He's
I
changed
know.
mindsets.
Yep.
He's
gonna-
changed mindsets.
He'll live on for that specifically.
Absolutely.
You know
Oh,
what I
yeah.
mean? That's
There's a lot of
awesome.
business owners that don't like to collaborate
No.
and give
Yeah.
information.
Mm-mm.
They like to hoard the information and think that's the way to do business.
Right.
No, what I've found is collaboration is the key to success.
Yeah.
That's right.
Building a network of like-minded individuals, even if you're in the
Yeah.
same industry.
Yeah.
Community over competition is
Yeah.
what we like to say
No,
all
100%.
the time, man.
It's true, man. Like, it's funny because my three probably biggest competitors in town, I have a picture where the three of them are at a party together,
Yeah.
all
Hell
shoulder
yeah,
to
man.
shoulder.
That's awesome.
And I'm like, this is what I always wanted. I never held any animosity or anything towards these guys. Like, oh, there's not enough business for
Yeah.
all of us.
Right.
And I'm like, dude, there's plenty of business. And you know what? I relate to these guys. They have the same problems and the same things as me.
Yeah.
I'm like, I connect with these
Yeah.
dudes.
And I think that's what it has to be, man. Like
Yeah.
everybody has that. Like everybody should have that in any industry as well. But that brings out more in you. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And the creativity in what we do,
Yeah.
filmmaking and just videography, photography. You want to open your brain a little bit more, and what better to do it with somebody that's doing exactly what you're doing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that's what a lot of people lose track on as well, is like we are willing to bring so many people underneath us, and help them out. When I was a promoter in pro wrestling, I didn't think about my company so much.
Yeah.
I worried about the wrestlers. Like
Yeah.
my goal was to get these guys, give them reps, give them matches, so that way they can make the big time. You know what I mean? And I think everybody loses track of that. Just like
Yeah.
you're doing filmmakers for filmmaking, and we need actors.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? You need the sound guy. You need the
Yeah.
lighting, like we talked about. We can go all day with the business. Johnny, with real estate. He's
Yeah.
got people there too. So this people need to understand. Like that's why I love what I do.
Yeah.
I look at the person that needs us, and how can we tell a story for them? You know what I mean? And I think that's the biggest part of what we do.
And it's
you know?
fulfilling. It's a much more. It's a happier way to live,
Absolutely.
man. I don't think living in jealousy, and it's an easy thing to do. Like
No.
when you're chasing so much, I think it's easy to like look around and be like, oh, this person.
Yeah.
But I think if you look, I think once you can change that mindset, I think it's way healthier to even just live like that.
It's mental freedom when you can walk in a room and you can see these guys and give them a high five or a handshake instead of, oh, look at those assholes over there,
Right.
Or and it gives you a headache and you got this burden of just it's just it weighs on you.
Yeah.
And mental health is a big thing.
Oh yeah, I'm huge on that.
So you're huge on that. So am I. How do you wind down, Christian?
Something I've started to try to practice more so. I'm a work in progress, as everybody work in progress.
We all are.
I really do try to do some meditation every night now. Transcendental meditation's the thing I do. I picked that up from a filmmaker, David Lynch, and I read his thing on it, and it was pretty interesting. And you know what? Ultimately, like some people think, oh, like meditation's like hocus pocus or something, or they think that I've heard like some weird connotations, but I think ultimately what it really comes down to is just kind of releasing of thoughts, kind of being able to consider and ponder on things in your day and process things correctly. And I think that's important because I think that kind of sets a precedent and energy for the right day. And I think they teach us a lot, like in behavioral counseling, where they talk about how sometimes we can have thoughts or observations that we pull feelings from when we're just pulling a feeling from nothing. It's just like, oh, this happened. Well, this customer or whatever is, they're just rude, or, this person's an asshole, whatever. And it's like in reality, when you just process it correctly, you kind of lose that emotional attachment to the situation, then you can handle it better. That's right. And I think that's healthy for me.
Like people create their own problems. They have too much time to think or too much time to reflect on something. They start creating this this stuff.
Yeah.
This goulash of just negativity.
Yeah.
And it weighs on you, man.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think it's.
So you're from San Antonio. I'm from San Antonio. This man is close enough. He's from San Antonio.
Down the road.
Spurs, man. And you mentioned the Spurs earlier.
I love them.
Hey, Wemby dropped. What was it? What did Wemby drop last night? 38.
Yeah, 38.
Man, that was awesome, man. We witnessed history last night, by the way. That was
great.
awesome.
Did you see that his starting numbers were the same as Duncan's?
Yeah. His first game, right?
Because people were like, kind of like, some people were like trashing on him for it, but I'm like, and then when they showed that, I'm like, look, I mean,
hey man, to hear the buzz over the last year, I'm like, man, if we get this guy, everything's going through my head. I'm like, being a coach too, I'm like, this guy's really skinny. Yeah, he's 7'4", but is he gonna get pushed around? And then he comes in the league and ain't nobody pushing him around too much.
Well, I heard he's been eating some tacos and some Taco Cabana and stuff.
That's easy to do here.
I mean, he'll put some weight on those bones.
I'm sure Tony told him too. Like, hey man, when you get down there, the food's too damn good.
Yeah, stay away. Watch out.
So I like Wemby. I'm still a David Robinson guy, man.
Oh yeah.
When David Robinson came in the league, that guy, and he's still. I mean, I'm gonna admit it here. I kind of teared up whenever he retired.
Oh hell yeah!
I think
the Admiral?
San Antonio did.
Yeah.
Man.
Oh yeah.
We
He's
all
the reason
felt
why I became a Spurs fan.
Yeah.
We built this ship for him, me and the family friends, and we ended up putting it in San Antonio at a museum, and we got to meet David Robinson. They played the Houston Rockets that night.
Yeah.
Steve Francis was on the team at that time, and we got to meet him, man. And there's actually a photo I should probably share one day that I'm just looking up at him, man, and that changed everything for me. I became the biggest Spurs fan after that.
When he came out, he had the chiseled muscles and everything. Oh, dude, that guy's a beast.
Well, and to me, he represents what San Antonio I feel is. It's like not only is he a great player, but it's his who he is as a person. It's like his mentality.
Yeah.
I think he has a known track record of being a really good guy in his foundations and. My dad actually met him one time at a Bible study.
Really?
And said that he was like a super, super humble, just really nice guy. And I'm like, that's the kind of stuff you want to hear. And I think that's the kind of things we want, like in our our Spurs.
In our players.
Yeah.
And so I agree, man. I have a Robinson's my guy.
I love Duncan. I don't want to say I love Wemby. I mean, I don't really. He's played 5 games.
We'll learn to love him. We'll learn to love him.
Right.
But Duncan and Robinson, those guys are pillars.
Yeah.
Especially Robinson, pillar in the community. He's got the Carver Center. He's got all these different things. And Tim is doing a lot of great things too.
Yeah.
But David Robinson really stands out to me. There's just sports is life.
Yeah.
Just like music, movies.
Yeah.
I can sit here all day and talk about the Spurs and the history from the 80s, the 90s, and from Cadillac Anderson to Alvin Robertson and all
Right.
these guys. J-Rock, I don't even think you were alive when Cadillac Anderson was
I don't know
was
who that
playing.
is that a car?
No. He was a Spurs center, man. He was number 33 back in the day. Cadillac Anderson. Greg Anderson was his name.
Cool name.
Wasn't Sean Elliott number 33 too? Or was he
No,
32?
Sean Elliott was 32.
32,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, Sean,
So who's
yeah.
your favorite Spur of all time, Christian?
Man, that's the. You know, I really love Ginobili.
Okay.
I really,
Yeah.
I love the way he plays.
His passion, man.
His
Yeah,
passion,
yeah,
like his to me, every time he was going for a layup, and I just sensed that like I'm giving this everything.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? That feeling was like so. I don't know. There's something about it that got me so hyped up
That's great, man.
that I'm like, dude, I just love watching Ginobili play.
I mean, mine's Tony because I grew up wanting to play like Tony. I was
Yeah.
a guard, you know, and then I met him and went to his camp, stuff like that. But like, Tony was like the 18 years old coming into the league, you know, and that's why I look at Wemby. I'm like, okay, let's, you know, let's get some time in. But yeah, Tony's Spurs are just a huge part of my life.
Yeah.
The family feel that they have, I kind of grew with that.
Yeah.
You know, wanting to, you know, from my teammates to me coaching my teams, it's got to be that family feeling. That's what I've loved about the Spurs. I don't know. Obviously, I'm probably being biased because we're from here, but you don't see the way the camaraderie that the Spurs have. I don't think I see that anywhere else. Do y'all with other teams?
Yeah, it's true. I feel like I might be biased also, but I'm in the same camp where I always feel like that's why I love the Spurs is because I felt they represent what San Antonio is, like the family, that the honor. I don't know. There's something about that to me. I got a soft spot.
They're
for
all
that
very
kind of
humble. You don't have some guy that's beating his chest and
Right.
you know talking shit on camera to the media and I want to be traded and
Right.
because if that shit happens behind the scenes, he's pretty much gone.
Yeah.
Then you have a mysterious trade or a mysterious. He's on the waiver wire or something because you know something happened.
I know Pop's responsible for a lot of that culture. But yeah, man, I think that's San Antonio right there.
Yeah.
That's why I love San Antonio, man. That's why like I would never. It was funny because early on when I was starting and stuff, people would be like, "Hey, why don't you go to Austin or why don't you go to LA or whatever?" Well, even if I couldn't go to LA, but even if I wanted to,
Too expensive, man.
and it's too much traffic, man. I can't do that.
Too.
So have you worked with the Spurs? You said we mentioned that, right?
So a little bit, and kind of some roundabout way. So we did a interview with Keldon Johnson. We did for a client of ours. That was really cool.
How was he, man?
He was awesome, man. He was super humble, super nice guy. Like, it's funny because, you know, you always kind of, something that I always feel I've never tried to, like, go in. It's like, I never want to be, like, star-faced or, like, star-studded or whatever. And that doesn't mean I don't have respect for somebody or anything. Like, it's just a matter of, you know, their person, you know, and that's what I aim to go in with. But ultimately, like, you still feel something like, hey, I'm meeting a super mega, you know, like, Spurs player. You're like, oh, so, you know, there's still that. So when I got there, really nice house and everything. It's, you know, it was like out in the country and it was kind of surprising, but beautiful place. And he was like fixing one of his cars when we got there.
It was his house.
Yeah. It was his house.
Okay. I thought y'all were like shooting at another location.
It was actually at his house.
Okay.
He was like fixing one of his cars, like hands on. He's like, hey, he had a thing he had to go to, but he's like, hey, you know what? If you guys need more time, like he was just so cool, accommodating when he was doing us the biggest favor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Wow.
That's
so
so cool,
I had nothing
man.
but great things.
So
to
fixing
say.
his car, I mean, that's crazy because most of these millionaires have just buy a new car.
Yeah.
Right? Why are you gonna fix it? Just
Right.
buy a new one.
John, am I gonna catch you fixing your car?
No. No, and I'm not a millionaire.
Yeah,
but
right.
I don't know how to fix cars.
Yeah, I wouldn't fix.
Yeah.
I mean, I've tried looking on YouTube on for some stuff, and I mean, if it's too much work, I'm like, I'll just hire somebody. Or
The extent of my knowledge as a light comes on, I'm like, okay, that means my tires are low.
Something's going on here. I don't know what this light's telling me.
I'm
right?
taking it to somebody. They'll know.
So let me ask you this, Christian. As you progressed, or when you started, and as you progressed, do you have naysayers that say, "Oh man, you shouldn't have started this business, or it's too much work, you're not going to make it, so on and so forth." And how do you combat that?
Yeah. In some ways, maybe my biggest naysayer came from internal. You know, I don't outside of what I kind of mentioned about some people that I got that felt very kind of like they feel like they're belittling you, or like, you know, like they're like I said that company that I worked with, like there was a group. There was a bunch of other filmmakers there, right? And some of them had gone to college and stuff, and so they're looking at me, this guy who didn't go to college and do all this stuff. And there was just a little bit of a sense of like, oh, we have this really expensive gear and we have all this stuff. And, you know, whether or not I was in their position or vice versa, like I just would have hoped we would have had some sort of, but you know, you get a little bit of that. So that's a little bit of a push and pull thing. But for me, I think probably the big thing was kind of interesting. So my grandfather was a daredevil. He was a motorcycle. He actually
Like Evil Knievel?
like Evil
Oh,
Knievel.
really?
Okay.
Dang.
And he actually broke one of Evil Knievel's records.
Oh, snap.
And so I've always wanted to do a story about him, but to be fully honest, you know, part of what he struggled with was his kind of balance in life in terms of like his family
Yeah.
and his career. And he wasn't the best father, you know. And it was tough for my dad and his siblings because, you know, he had a second family on the side, and it was like you know, and so there's a whole complication to that. But one of the things I think that really stuck with me is I saw that, and to me probably my biggest, in a sense, naysaying was more so just the idea that I would never want to compromise my morals or integrity in hopes of trying to build a career.
Yeah.
You know, to me, like I saw that and I'm like, I never ever want to compromise that, you know, at the cost of a career or something like that.
Right.
Yeah, that was my question, because a lot of, man, I think it's just a lot of creators, just not just filmmaking, but you get so lost in your creativity sometimes, and
Yeah.
it takes a long time for you to get out of that, or even like you can't just snap out of it sometimes. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Because it's like a writer as well, right? When you sometimes where you just can't write, but when you feel it, you just go with it, and you just keep going and going and
Yeah.
going and going, right? But I feel like that's what that was going to be my question too. Is like, do you have a family, and does it affect what you do? Like you know, as well when you're doing all this stuff.
Yeah. So I'm not married or anything, you know. So I'm only 27. You know,
Oh, there you
I
go.
say that, but
He's married to the game.
I'm
There
married
you
to the
go.
game.
Yeah.
I'm
I
married to
love
the
it.
game. I've always been hey, you know what? Maybe I get married after 30 kind of thing.
There you go.
But you know, I obviously it's always been in my mind. But for me, it like that goes kind of a little bit into it. It's like I would never want to be an absent like father or something like that. So
yeah.
like I know that I'm in the hustle mode right now, and it's like as busy as I am, like I just know there's no way that I could live up to that responsibility right
Yeah.
now. And so you know, it's definitely in my mind, but I want to do it the right way,
Yeah.
you know, and that's something like I said, seeing my dad and the way he grew up and stuff, and then you know my dad's incredible father, you know, I mean with I'm very privileged in the way that I feel like I had really really great parents in the sense that they really taught me a good set of morals and things that mean a lot to me. So it's like, you know, I'd hope to return that favor, you
There you
know,
go.
in a sense, and preserve that legacy.
Yeah.
And so you know that matters to me. So I want to do it at the right time.
That's right. Yeah.
You know.
There you go, man. So how many movies have you made a movie?
So I've made 3 short films.
Okay.
hmm
And how long were these? Like, would you say? What was the length of these short films?
So each one of them was about like 10 minutes.
Okay.
And we actually did it for this competition called the 48-hour film festival.
Nice.
And basically with that, you get 48 hours.
Mhm.
Like Friday night, they give you like a bunch of random prompts. So it's like you get a random genre, you get a random character, random line of dialogue, and you have to like find a way to incorporate all this into your
Oh,
script.
that's so cool.
So it was pretty cool because the first year we did it, like we were prepping for it, and I had a lot of like friends that I had met at that point in the industry. So, and I, you know, I had a lot of family that I called in. We pulled like a 40-person crew for the first one.
Damn.
Only because I'm like you
Yeah,
know,
you're
being
thinking big.
inexperienced, I'm
Mhm.
thinking like and more people equals better product, right?
Right.
Well, I was super wrong about that, but you know, we did the first one. It was I did a lot of things that were outside of my gut feeling.
Heck yeah.
And when I wasn't doing it with when I wasn't trusting my gut on that first one, I feel like that was all of our pitfalls. The second one, I kind of played into more so like, hey, you know what? Let me trust my gut, and what I did was simplify. Like I just kind of a little more low key. I said, you know what? I feel really comfortable writing and directing, whereas the first one I had just I co-wrote, but I felt more fluid, just being able to kind of control the process and
Yeah.
not to be like a dictator, but just when you're running on that short of a time frame, you don't have
Yeah.
time to like
Yeah.
question creatively. So the second one we actually won, and we went to a global festival where we competed like with all the basically like every country around the world
Wow, that's awesome.
had one. So we were the representative for San Antonio.
That's awesome.
Nice,
And that was
man.
really
Hell
cool.
yeah.
That was a
That's
cool
awesome.
one, man.
I bet that felt pretty good at representing the
I
entire
did.
city.
Oh, hell yeah.
It did, and it was a lot of and I'm glad because it was one that I felt like we're trying to say something with this film too.
Yeah,
So it was
right.
representing the city in a way that I wanted to. Like this is a film that feels important. You know.
Can we find these films somewhere?
Yeah, so you on our website and stuff like that, we have some trailers, and some of them are public, some of them are more so private screened, but
Okay.
yeah, you can find them on our website.
What's your
I was gonna
website?
say, what's the website?
StrydeStudios.com.
StrydeStudios.com, and that's STRYDE
Yep.
Studios.com.
Bingo.
There you go. Who? One more question for me, Johnny. Who would you want to work with actor-wise? If you could choose a couple people or like a cast, what would this cast
That's a
be?
great question. Man, you know who I really like is I really William Dafoe.
Really? Okay.
I love William Dafoe.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but like I'm just every time he's on screen,
Platoon.
I'm interested. Yes.
Platoon, and he came
Boondock
up.
Saints.
Boondock
Saints.
Saints.
I mean, everybody knows him, of course, as Green Goblin, but
Mhm.
also, you know, he's had so many like kind of low key. There was a movie called Lighthouse that he was in,
Mhm.
where he played an
Yep.
old sailor, and like, I'm never bored. And to me, it's like the biggest crime is being bored.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm like, if I'm entertained watching you, I think you're like, there's something there.
Yeah.
You know, and there's like a side of campiness too, like where you can kind of take it. Some people think Nick Cage lives in like in a weird, sweet. I like personally like Nick Cage, you know. But you know, I think it's just a matter of there's some actors that just really like compel me.
Yeah.
And of course I'm a huge like Goodfellas fan like you.
Mhm.
So I love Al Pacino.
You like the bad guys then? You like the bad guys that are the good guys in the
I
movie,
do.
right?
And I just watched Killers of the Flower Moon, an amazing movie which I recommend.
What I love about Goodfellas, a lot of those scenes were improv.
Yeah.
Like the funny how.
Yeah.
That one was one of the best scenes
Really?
ever.
Those are a lot of improv?
Yeah.
Really? That's awesome. I had
And
no
it's
idea.
cool because like that's like to me it's like when you have an actor that can get it that well and be able to do that, you know, and like in a way that doesn't compromise like, you know, what they're doing, like those guys are top tier, man. And,
Oh, yeah.
And I think
awesome.
you know
Joe Pesci, De Niro, rest in peace, Ray Liotta.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that was a great movie, man.
I love those.
well acted. So speaking of acting, who would play you in a movie?
Oh boy.
Oh
about
man,
your
that's
life,
a good
man.
question, Johnny.
Well, obviously I got to get the best looking dude.
You mean would be like George Clooney or something?
Yeah,
like that?
exactly. Somebody who looks nothing like me. That's who I want to play me. Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome.
Anybody that would be considered a top tier actor, great looking. That would be perfect. Yeah,
Yeah.
I go with that.
What's your favorite movie genre?
I like sci-fi, I like drama,
Huh.
and I like historical. Yeah, I like historical a lot, so that's why I like Killers of the Flower Moon. I love seeing those kind of. That's why I like the and Scorsese's so good at this. When he's Goodfellas, like I buy into it. You know what I mean? Like I feel like I'm watching a movie that's a slice of life in a period of time, and there's no, you know, even like Wolf of Wall Street, I think nailed that
Yeah.
super well.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I just love like, you know, it feels so real to me.
Yeah, there were some errors, a lot of errors, cinematic errors in
Mhm.
Goodfellas, but you kind of overlook them, right?
Yeah, yeah, and that's it's funny, man, because it's like one of the things that when I was looking into film history that I always find is how many times that there are errors or mess ups that
Yeah.
people love about a movie.
Yeah.
And it's like I think to the point we were mentioning earlier about failure, it's like filmmaking is nothing but failure.
Mhm.
And I think people have to realize that when they get into it. It's nothing but failure. And you
Right.
will fail every time. You can have everything perfect, planned, everything, and you'll still fail in some regard. In a regard of not everything's gonna go perfect. When you stop seeing that as necessarily failure in a negative connotation, then I think it becomes like positive. But so many things that have been in famous films that people think are like, man, that was so genius of them was like an accident,
Yeah.
you know, or
Yeah.
like a mistake.
Right.
And people love it because of that. And it's
Yeah.
like, you know, I think you just gotta kind of embrace that to some sense.
That's awesome.
When it's all said and done, Christian, what's your legacy gonna be, man?
You know, I really want to make an impact on filmmaking. I think, like especially like I said, with the passing of Cary Valderrama, you know, rest in peace. I think he is a guy that really cared about filmmaking in San Antonio. I really care about filmmaking in San Antonio. I love the city. You know, I think we're in a time and place now where you can do what we do anywhere. It doesn't have to be in LA anymore.
Yep.
And I love San Antonio. That's why I never wanted to leave, and I wanted to build it here. And you know, for me, my goal would be to be the greatest filmmaker I can be, but ultimately, in the long run, influence the other filmmakers that come after me in the way that the filmmakers before have influenced me. You know, they completely changed my life. I feel like they, in so many ways, seeing what they did gave me so much inspiration, so much purpose. And I would only hope to be able to kind of pass that on again and make some sort of difference that could keep it alive, keep us going to theaters, keep that experience there, because I know what it meant to me, you know.
Yeah.
And I want that going forward.
I love that, man. What advice do you have for a young filmmaker or somebody interested in film to go forward? What do you tell them when somebody comes comes up to you and says, "Hey, I'm thinking about making the jump into film."
As the great Ridley Scott would say, just fucking do it.
Hey,
That's what he
awesome.
says, man.
Oh, yeah.
He's a guy who's he's probably one of the most like brutish filmmakers out there. But man, it's so true. You just got to do it. You can't give up. You got to take it in strides and the steps that make sense for you.
No pun intended.
No pun intended, but take it in strides.
Yeah.
And but really, you got to keep moving forward.
Oh, yeah,
And,
man.
if you're moving in the direction, you're moving in the direction.
That's awesome, man.
So besides you sitting here with us today, where else can people find you, man?
Stryde Studios and Christian Stryder with the Y, so it's STRYDER. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, everywhere, and then Stryde Studios as well. That's our company, and we're doing some pretty exciting stuff, man. We got a lot of really cool things coming up. We recently partnered with some of the schools to start doing more interning, and we're gonna try to get involved more so with the colleges, Incarnate Word and
Nice.
UTSA, because they just started doing film programs in the past year. So we're really trying to utilize that more. So if you're a passionate filmmaker and you're interested in this world and you can excel, I mean, reach out. You got to connect with your fellow filmmakers and you'd be surprised.
I'll be reaching out then.
Yeah.
And
That's my goal. I really do want to make a movie one day.
Yeah.
And I just love all this stuff. So
Yeah, absolutely.
Hopefully I can pick your brain and
yeah, man.
come
talking
be
shop.
in your studio. You got a studio in San Antonio?
We do, and as one last little thing, this actually just happened, so I haven't even said this publicly anywhere. We actually just acquired, and I can't say too many deals, but what I can say is we just acquired a new company, Legacy Production Company in San Antonio, and as a part of that deal, we're actually purchasing their studio.
Wow, that's awesome.
And
you
so,
heard it here first.
And so that's right.
There you go, exclusive.
And we'll be in that studio probably top of the year. And we'll have the biggest studio space in San Antonio with the full lighting grid and everything. And it's in private use, but we're implementing over the next year how we can make that like rentable in public.
Oh yeah,
so we
man.
can bring more film productions here and things like that.
Maybe we can do some podcasts over there in your
Yeah,
studio.
man, it'd be fun.
Go, man.
I know we'd have a good time doing it.
Oh yeah, my man.
That'd be awesome.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, man, I love this, bro. I love picking people's brain. That's why I love podcasting. But to know that somebody like you's doing what you're doing in San Antonio, man, that's awesome. And I love that you're doing that.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Can we find you on social media?
Yes, you can. I'm gonna be there prevalent and trying to always do it more and more.
So you're on Facebook, Instagram. What do you got?
Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, because I gotta be,
Mhm.
and I'm on X, but more so on the other three.
Awesome, man.
So,
You
yeah.
got Snapchat?
That's a hard one. I said if I got to compromise one, maybe I'll compromise Snapchat.
OnlyFans? You on that?
I say maybe it's a smart marketing technique. There might be something
Hey,
there.
There's a lot of filmmakers on OnlyFans.
Somebody might go there
Yeah.
purely out of curiosity.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, Christian
That's
Stryder,
awesome.
you're an awesome, extraordinary guy. All right.
Yeah.
Today you're extraordinary. You got an extraordinary story, and we love having people like you and your story on with us, man. It makes an intriguing story, and people love hearing that kind of success, man.
Look what you guys are doing.
You're just an average dude who's just doing extraordinary shit.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so we love that. So those of you watching, we appreciate you watching. You can also find us on social media, Facebook, Instagram. We're on TikTok. We're also on socialplugmedia.net on the interwebs. So with that said, we are unplugged from the Social Plug Podcast, where we connect you to level up. Today's episode sponsor is Greenleaf Health and Wellness, and you can find them at greenleafnb.com. With that said, we are out. Thank you, Christian.
Thank you.